Thank you for listening to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast and a proud member of the Victims and Villains podcast network, which also includes Horrific Hope Film Festival, the first film festival of its kind to be horror-centric and mental health focused. A special thank you to our sponsors for the 2023 year, which currently include Diabolical DVD, Fierce Literature, and Convicted Printing. If you would like to become a sponsor along with these other great and wonderful companies, consider the link in the description below. And if you're a filmmaker, please submit your screenplay, short film, or feature film to be considered for our 2023 lineup. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, you are listening to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark.
And I'm your other co-host, Josh, and I am once again feeling festive.
Yay! Festivities.
Yay. We are go ahead. Go ahead. I was gonna say we're joined by once again nuggs-the-final-girl from the land of Twitch and TikTok, I think.
Instagram mostly, but all over the place.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. I'm excited.
The lands of the internet.
Yeah, I am an internet lady, I guess.
We did. So you guys make sure that you guys go check out her first episode where we talked about how she got into streaming and stuff like that. She originally discussed Sweeney Todd with us during our Johnny Depp series we did back in July, and you guys can hear all about how Mark loves musicals, and
He really does.
we almost decided to do Anna and the Apocalypse for this episode, but Mark was like, you know what,
okay, I've never seen Anna and the Apocalypse, but I've heard
I haven't
good.
either.
I have not.
Yeah,
either.
same.
I keep hearing it's good, but it's my aversion to musicals and wanting to stab my ears out when I hear them.
Mark, we'll
Get it?
one day, musicals will come back.
They will.
I could deal with Hedwig though.
Oh, great.
Hedwig's fantastic.
Have you tried Moulin Rouge?
Didn't like it.
Or
since
it's horror adjacent, what about Rocky Horror Picture Show?
So I get what it did. I understand why it's popular, but I'm not a fan of Rocky Horror.
Bye.
Shame.
I've even been to one of the live performances of Rocky Horror, and
Even better.
Oh, I'm so jealous of that.
I can't get into it. I've never been able to.
Did you bring props? Like a newspaper and a squirt gun and like...
Yeah, did you get into the experience?
I got spanked on stage.
That's good.
Wait.
That's a good experience.
A stranger got to spank you? I have goals the next time we see each other in person.
It was so one of the things they did was when they opened up, they asked, was it your first time to a live performance of Rocky Horror? And if you raised your hand, you got drug on stage, and they pulled out a paddle.
That's the best.
I kind of want to see Rocky Horror Picture live now.
You totally should. I highly recommend it. I've seen it live probably about 5 times now, and It is amazing.
So I think the Narrow out here is still doing it once or twice a month.
So
if you want to check their schedule, we can figure it out.
So I know that Rocky Horror is like, I know we're not here to talk about that, but like Rocky Horror is one of those things that like I much like Mark, like I understand it's a good movie. It's probably not my first choice for anything, but I feel like seeing it in an audience would just be like completely like life changing.
It's a little more fun than just watching the movie with friends, but I don't know, something about it. It's okay.
I think you would like it, Josh. I think it would be really like transformative because the like audience participation makes it so much fun. You're yelling at the screen, like people are dancing in the aisles. Sometimes, depending on the type of show that you go to, they'll be acting it out live while the movie's going on the stage. Sometimes they don't.
That's how the Narrow does it.
It's so
Give
great.
it to me.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
The underwear run.
Yes.
But we are here to discuss the Advent calendar. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you guys celebrate this time of year. Yes, the Advent calendar is now streaming on Shudder. It is a French movie, so you do have to read it.
Which
I'm curious.
Sorry, I'll get into that a little bit later. I was going to say I found it amusing because of, but then again, we haven't said spoilers, so.
This ended up this was the compromise that Mark and I reached, because a lot of Christmas slashers are really cheesy, and I think we wanted something a little bit more deeper. We talked about cheesy at the beginning of the month with Christmas Bloody Christmas, which you can also stream on Shudder. But I'm curious also, was this a first time for both of you guys seeing this one?
I had never seen it. And I was really interested when, before I watched it, I read like the little blurb and I was like, okay, I can get here for this.
Yeah, I had come across it a bunch, and I remember I think you got to see like a screener or something, and we're talking about it being really good. So
I need more people to talk about this movie and like put it in their like regular rotations for like Christmas horror, because this is like this was one of my favorite films from last year. And in terms of like Christmas movies, I feel like Black Christmas kind of set this standard for what Christmas horror can be, to where everything's got to be a slasher. And so you have films like Christmas Evil, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and just a lot of like at Christmas Bloody Christmas. Like you have a lot of those that are just like slashers. But then every once in a while you get like little treats like Krampus, like what we did last year, and the movies like The Advent Calendar.
And Gremlins. Don't forget Gremlins.
And Gremlins.
Oh, yeah.
Gremlins.
I always forget. Yeah. Gremlins is a Christmas movie. But yeah, I was blown away. Sorry, by the Advent calendar. I was like, all right, so I don't have any expectation for this movie going in. And as it progressed, I was like, okay, this is getting way better than I thought. Like, oh, that's really cool. Like just the things that were happening, I was like, that's such a smart way to do this.
Yeah, it was neat the way it kind of played out and went into how far a person will go sometimes to get something or to achieve something. And that's kind of what the movie ends up being about.
Yeah.
So this movie tells the story of Eva. She is a paraplegic former dancer, got into a really bad car accident, and basically for her birthday, her friend Sophie gives her this German advent calendar that is essentially possessed by a supernatural force. And once you start it, you have to finish it, and then you pass it on and give it to the next person. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in spoilers, but as Mark and Nuggs kind of hinted to, it gets a little bit crazier as the film develops. And what I think is really interesting is that we're in this era of horror now where we're kind of breaking down these stereotypes that women have had in the horror genre for a long time. I think Hush is another great example where you have a deaf protagonist, and it's a really smart slasher film. And so to have Eva be a paraplegic, but not just a paraplegic, but someone that is struggling with a certain trauma, losing basically her father, almost her life. Like I think that this is just I love horror that just feels completely different, and is different in the way that we're also embracing a protagonist that we don't typically see, especially when it comes to females.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was actually, while you were talking, thinking about Hush as another example.
Yeah, Hush. The only thing, so I liked Hush. My only problem is I wish, spoilers, I guess. I wish the dude didn't talk. I think it would have been a much more impactful movie if literally the whole movie, obviously the sounds, like sound effects and stuff would be there, but like I wish he didn't talk. And the only time that I do wish he would talk is dealing with outside people. But like, because the first half of the movie, he didn't talk at all. And I was like, this is cool. Like, yes, we have Michael Myers who doesn't talk, but like that's not his like thing. So I was like, sweet, this could be really cool. And then he started talking and I was like, meh.
Yeah, the movie kind of takes like a weird turn once he like takes the mask off and he's kind of trying to be this like diet version of Freddy Krueger. And I was like, this isn't quite working for me. Put the mask back on. Yeah. And another example would be the daughter from A Quiet Place as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think even scarier for this movie in particular, because she is paraplegic, there's a lot she can't do. Like she is a quadriplegic, I believe. So that means she has no feeling from her injury down. So things could be happening to her and she would have no idea. And like just the mobility, lack of mobility in a haunting, like a possession almost, or possession's the wrong word, in a scary situation, like not being able to move is a scary thing.
Well, she was paraplegic, so she had her legs quadriplegic is like
neck down
limbs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My bad.
Yeah. But yeah, that was that. So I've known growing up, people in wheelchairs. I have hearing issues, which most people don't notice, and I've known other people with disabilities, and you kind of get one of two or three kind of general personalities. Like, don't do anything for me. I want to do it all myself. Or, yeah, and they're happy and they'll explain their issues and thank you. And then there's kind of very few that are right in the middle and just kind of like, leave me alone. She kind of seemed to fall right there in that middle where she wasn't happy when people helped her, but she didn't exactly like, no. It was almost like it was a point of misery for her. And I think that came from the fact that it was due to an injury late in life as opposed to being born with a disability like that.
Yeah. I want to throw a spoiler warning up now because I feel like you can't kind of get into a lot of what Mark like, just kind of hinted at without jumping into spoilers. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, the Advent Calendar is now streaming on Shudder. As you guys can tell from our conversation already, we all highly recommend it. So please go check it out. But yeah, Mark, I think you bring up a good point of how she's treated throughout the course of this film. So basically, like, one of the reason that kind of keeps her going is not necessarily the curse, but it ends up her having this promise of having the legs, being able to walk again. And I had forgotten a lot about this movie from watching it last year when it first came onto Shudder, and the things that like I feel like there's a lot that caught me by surprise as well. And so like I'd forgotten about like the fact that like she was this like really accomplished dancer. There's a sequence where she's like walking through her apartment. I think it's her and Sophie, but you can kind of see like certain rooms have like pictures of like her as like this ballerina, like in the end where she's getting ready to make the video for the next person who would inherit the advent calendar. She's like dancing and like that's what she wants to do. And but she's treated really poorly throughout the course of this. And I don't know, like many people that are in Eva's situation, Like I have a couple friends that are um what's the word when you're losing when you like have a limb lost?
An amputee?
Yeah,
Phantom limb.
amputees. Sorry.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, amputee.
no, amputee.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends that have lost like limbs. Like I have a friend that has lost both of his legs from the knee down. I have a friend that has lost his leg from I think the middle of his thigh down. And I have another friend that has lost pretty much half of his arm down to his hand. And like I don't feel like people like treated them any differently. And I don't know if like the treatment of handicapped people in this is kind of like over heightened to a point, or over stylized for the point of kind of making you feel sorry for her. But I do think it's really interesting that um I think this movie speaks a lot about how we treat people that look differently than us.
I got a friend that he's missing part of one of his legs. He's an amputee from like the knee down, and he wears the prosthetic a lot. And it's just, I mean, I may have told you the story about me and him trying to chase a turkey around his yard last year.
I bet that was a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, that's great because you get to tell a story that starts out with an amputee and a fat guy chasing a turkey around a yard.
See,
I would have loved to see that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would pay to see that.
That's one of my best stories is, and I get to start it like that, and you get a weird look. It's like, no, I'm not kidding. It's and he did jujitsu. That's where I met him, was during jujitsu.
That's awesome.
So he would actually train and roll and spar and stuff with his prosthetic off.
Dope.
We called him quarter guard because he was missing part of a leg.
That's really sweet.
He actually does. Now he does like addiction. He's former military and does like addiction counseling and stuff like that.
That's awesome. But yeah, with this movie, I thought it actually did like most, I would say most people, there isn't that big handicap influence in my day to day. So as like an able-bodied person, I thought it did a really good job of showing how people somewhat actually are to people with disabilities. That there is like that. I feel like this movie showed a more of a range of the people that you as a handicapped person would encounter. But then again, I don't have that like life experience. So like I'm coming from obviously like a point of privilege, I guess. But to me, it felt respectable. Like, yes, she's handicapped. Yes, it happened later in life. She's obviously angry and frustrated and resentful. And like people are often at first like baby gloves, and then as someone probably gets to know them like her friend, she treats her just like anyone else. Like she didn't when they go to the bar to have drinks or whatever, she didn't like push her into the bar. She walked like she would with anyone else, even though she was in a wheelchair.
Well, didn't
I don't think she had handles on the wheelchair.
She did, and I think the kind of jerky dude ended up pushing her in, didn't he?
Oh,
Maybe?
yeah. Are you talking about Boris, the guy that tried to rape her?
Boris.
Yeah.
Boris.
Yeah. Jerky guy.
Yeah, I was glad when he died. I literally went, yes.
Yeah. I think one of the scenes in particular is probably like the worst offender, like when it comes to like how I would imagine. Before I jump into that, I want to just comment on something you said, Nugs. We talked about like how this movie like handles it. I was like questioning like myself at like, because I run I oversee a small business here in Richmond, and I was like questioning. I was like, should I text my boss and like make sure that we have like accessible like handicap provisions at our office? Like, because you're right. Like, I don't like ever feel like I see that anywhere to where it's like you have handicap. Like, yes, like you have like the normal like handicaps spots like in the bathrooms and public restrooms or like handicap spots, but like I feel like I don't interact a whole lot with handicapped people.
Mhm.
And so I feel like, kind of some of the mental health of losing, like Mark was saying, like a limb, so not a limb, but like an actual like half your body essentially, so late in life, like you're really not sure how to handle her. And so like here she was, this professional dancer and now works basically for a misogynistic, just absolute butthole of a human being.
Yeah.
There's one point where in the movie he actually says, "I tried to pretend you were normal, but you are nothing but a half chick on wheels." And like I've seen this movie before, and like that line still caught me off guard, and I was like, man, like again, when he dies, it's like you earn it, but like that's such a good example of like how Eva is kind of treated throughout the course of this. It seems like before this accident, she was really celebrated, really revered as this dancer, and then this accident happens, and she kind of loses literally everything. If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
Yeah, and at the pool, though, you had the swimmer diver who didn't seem intimidated by her or by dealing with somebody with that kind of a handicap. He didn't even really seem to mind. He didn't seem like he was trying to help her at all because he felt sorry for her. He seemed like he was generally interested, but that I can't, I've lost the ability to walk. And that whole mindset that she had kind of made it like, okay, yeah, give me my wheelchair. Kind of like, I'm not worth this attention.
Well, not only that, but also like, I hate saying stuff like this, but like coming from a woman's perspective, if like some random dude is just like, hey, what, like, yes, he was not intimidating at all. And none of my like alarms went off. But like, still, generally, like, you're always kind of like at a slight guard, especially, I feel like, especially in her situation. But I think you're right. I think they played it off, like that scene played off really naturally in my mind. He was like, hey, do you want help? Like, I can if you need anything. And then he just like left her alone. He didn't like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
like let me.
yeah, because she didn't seem like she was really all that interested in talking to him or being friends or anything really.
Mhm.
So from a guy's perspective, he seemed like he was kind of interested and wanted to talk to her, but she was giving off the leave me alone kind of vibe, and he just kind of respected that.
Yeah, which was actually so nice to see. And I just want to point out the past few movies that I have seen, they have been doing away with the like gross m- male trope, I guess. Like they're actually putting out guys like you guys, like normal guys that are just like, oh, hey, I
Oh.
just like, I'm just here. I'm just a dude. I'm not like some big, like scary monster, and I'm not just gonna like attack you. Like, I'm not a bear. So I just wanted to point that out in the zeitgeist. It's just really nice to see the like uptick in decent humans, or decent men,
Yeah,
especially. But
yeah, it started to shift a little bit now, which I like as well, because it feels like when you go back and like watch like slashers and or like any horror from the 80s or 90s, I like I'm not connecting with any of these people on like an emotional level, and like I get it, like a lot of it's supposed to be like surface level fun kind of stuff,
mhm.
Is
uh
it?
like
Is it?
Christmas Bloody Christmas.
It's so bad, but it's so fun. Is it possible that that was intended for a manner to make you cheer for the slasher?
Mhm.
Possibly.
You've got all these despicable human beings getting like stabbed and murdered and cleaved and twain in various ways, and everybody's rooting for Michael Myers or Jason or Freddy, not the jock.
when when we talk about despicable humans, can we talk about Sophie in that same breath? Because this woman that's supposed to be Eva's friend is the worst, to
Yeah,
quote John Ralphio.
she kind of sucks. Like, she's not, because I had that thought watching it. I was like, why are they friends? Like the scene when they're at the bar, she's like, oh no, he didn't want to like a drink with you. It's with me, obviously. I was like, bitch, like rude. Who says that? Like,
Well, apparently she does. My so okay, this is probably going to sound stupid, but part of my issue was it's a French movie.
mhm.
Why was the Advent calendar German? Why couldn't they have used a French Advent calendar? Why did it have to be the scary German one?
Because German language is really harsh and scary anyway. And she
I
did
mean,
say that she went to like some market and she stole it, I
yeah,
guess.
but why did it have to be German? Why couldn't it have been French? That I mean, somebody could have gotten killed with a baguette at that point.
I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see that. Like a 2 day old hard baguette. Just
So I was gonna try and like defend it by saying that like ick, I think that's how you say it, is like
ish.
It would
the
be ish.
ish. So
It
ish, I was
translates
gonna
to
say
I. It translates
uh
to I, as in like myself, I.
so wait, does that mean that like she was her own killer or like the supernatural force?
Does it change the meaning of the meaning now for you?
Well,
Yeah, because I was like trying to like look up like German folklore on the dude and can't find any.
well, every advent calendar is personalized to the person
Mm-hmm.
that gets it. Ish is I, so it's everything that they wanted and knew, like it knew who was their friend, who wasn't, because a little bit later on in the movie, she kills her stepmom. I'm assuming that's who that was.
She was a biatch either
Oh my
way.
God, she was the
Oh yeah.
worst. Fräulein over there. She just But so that was like, she said it was a free kill, like that she just wanted to do it. So obviously, Ish, the advent calendar, was like, yep, got that. Boop. Because like that wasn't part of the calendar. The part of the calendar was for her to kill her dad.
Josh is over
Yeah.
there now, like, I'm going to have to rewatch this, knowing that that's what it means.
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And like I necessarily didn't mind. I think from a marketing standpoint from the films, I think that if you open this up and say that there's German folklore woven throughout it, you're hitting two different markets. Not just the French market, but also the German market, because this was I mean, before it came to Shudder, it got a mostly French and German release.
That makes sense. Totally.
Um,
And
are,
I believe it was German advent calendar that she stole from like a bazaar or whatever, because
yeah.
she was in Berlin.
Mhm.
And that's when she was like, "Oh, you're home early, or you're back or whatever."
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. They did
Okay.
mention, like, I think it was Berlin or something like that a couple times, but everything happens in France. And it was like, it just kept like running through my head. Why couldn't it have just been a French advent calendar?
So while we're on the subject of that, and I do eventually want to get back to Sophie,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but like that's one of the very few things that bother me about this movie is the fact that like Sophie is there in the beginning when she reads it because she understands German.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a couple days later, she leaves for 2 weeks and like there's never like any other notes that are like spoken in spoken with like whatever treat you have for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Um she just kind of like goes with it. Like I don't know, to me like that just kind of seems like a weird narrative choice.
I think they could have fixed it by having her like Google search or like Google
Yeah,
Translate or
right?
something. I think like I guess specifically for you, if they would have included that little bit in the movie, I think that would have like made it that much more coherent. I didn't necessarily like at first, I definitely had that thought of like, oh, so there's just no more German and it just says ish all the time. Um and then I was like trying to think about it like how I would react, and I'm like, well, she kind of explained the like key words to her a few times, so maybe she just like, I guess, like,
Well, she gave her the rules. She told her what the
yeah.
rules were. And it went off apparently at like 12:01 every night, like an alarm clock, to tell her to come eat your candy. So
I want a
I just,
second one where they don't eat the candy. Like what happens when they don't eat it?
well, it said you die.
Well, I thought you had a choice to like eat it or not eat it. You just had to open it.
Yeah. If you open it and you eat one candy, you have to
You have
eat
to
them
eat them
all.
all.
Yeah.
So what happens if you don't eat the candy and you just open it? Because if you just open it, then you're still doing what it asks for.
Well, I know
Stalemate, maybe?
one, one of the days opened up and spit out a toy car,
Mhm.
and another day opened up with a dog treat. So there were days that were opening up with no candy.
No candy.
There it's and also too like it's not just meant for like I know we talked about like it's meant for her, it's personalized, but keeping in mind too that there are 3 days where she does not eat the candy herself. Her dad actually, well, four actually.
Poor,
So there's
yeah.
4 instances. So you have the two where her dad eats the chocolate. You have the Lord's Prayer lady in the
Yep.
hospital that eats the
The communion
weird,
piece.
yeah, like the button, and then you have Sophie that steals the boner pill,
Yep.
which man.
So they kind of violated their own rules in the writing of each day.
Yeah. That was probably my only like jab at this movie, because it's a really good movie, but like that aspect bothered me because I'm like, there are so many loopholes. How does the evil keep up with it? Because like things generally have to have some sort of rules, but these just seemed like very circumstantial. Like, oh, well, no one's around, so we're just gonna change that rule real quick, and here you go, dog. You're a being.
And with
But
the final outcome being everything goes back to normal at the end of the calendar. And now that you know that the bad guy's name is like I myself, who's to say none of this was all just a mind game to begin with?
so it could have been a mind game. However, the rules never specify that Eva had to be the one to eat the candy.
That's true. It just said has to be eaten.
Yeah. So, and I mean, like in some regards, like, you know, we don't ever see what happens with like the woman in the hospital. We don't, you know, her dad ultimately dies. But they do have that really sweet, tender moment where like he kind of wakes up after being out of it because he has Alzheimer's. And then on top of that, you also have like Sophie meets her brutal demise, you know,
Yeah.
the dick that just wouldn't stop growing.
Just jeez.
Talk
What a way
about
to
pounding.
go. That was a fun scene, but
It is. It is like a really fun scene, but like Sophie as a character is just
ugh.
wow. Like, and like to your point, like you asked this question earlier, Nugs, about like how do they know each other? Like I'm curious if like they knew each other when she was a dancer, and like Sophie also happened to be a dancer, or if
so.
like
I think that's what they were trying to portray when she had that flashback of them getting hit by the car. I think that was Sophie.
That was somebody else.
That
was somebody else.
I thought it was Sophie because she said you always were mad at me or like you always resented me in some sort of way. And at the beginning when she drops it off, she's like, we never talk about it. So I thought that was Sophie.
Unless that wreck rearranged Sophie's face, it was a different person.
So Mark is right. It was a different person.
Was it?
I think from that scene that you're talking about in particular, I think that she ends up being the other car that hit them. That's the reason why they never did it. And I think they connect it out of like Sophie's guilt for the situation because it's never really alluded to what happened with the other girl. That was the driver, if you know she lived or if she died or if she ended up in kind of like the same exact circumstances as Eva. But I don't know. I would say that like that's kind of like her you know her guilt, and so in some way that she's hoping that like if I befriend her, if I take care of her, then that's kind of like my penance for what I would think was her being a drunk driver.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because the driver of the car with Ava was playing on her phone and like taking selfies and junk while they were driving down the street.
Oh, I am aware. I'm not saying that like you know the driver in Sophie's case is like getting off, but yeah.
So there's no excuse for that. I don't know I don't know how you'd blame Sophie when you very clearly got a cell phone using wannabe teenager of a driver.
I think they're both at fault for that. And like you know,
I may have missed something. I'm not seeing how you made the connection that Sophie was the other driver. How did I miss that?
So it goes back to the scene that Nugs brought up about like how they never talk about it and like some of the context there. I'm not saying that's the definitive thing. I'm saying that's the connection that like I have I as the viewer am making.
Oh,
or inferring, so I guess is the better word.
so
Very
you're
subtle subtext.
yeah. I didn't get that one. I missed it.
I probably missed a whole bunch in this movie. I do like the monster though. He was cool.
He looks freaking incredible. He's probably like his character design is one of my favorites that I've seen in horror in the last probably 10 years.
Him and the monster and Smile. That was really cool to me too.
Yeah. I wish that you would have been able to see a little bit more of the monster and Smile.
Me too. But that's the same thing that I have with this movie. I wish, like, I understood why it wasn't like a overall presence, because it's not really about a monster. It's about but like I wanted to see more of him. He reminded me of a mix between like Pyramid Head and the chatter or the chatter from
Cheddar, yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to be nerdy for a second.
Please.
And it wouldn't be the first time I've done
You're
this.
among friends here.
He really reminded me of some of the designs from the Soulblight Grave Lords from Warhammer, Age of Sigmar. There is a character called the Gravedigger that looked a lot like that.
I'm gonna go. So you said the Grave Digger?
I believe that's what he's called. The mask was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
It comes to more of like almost like a shovel looking helmet and mask, but
yeah,
the rest of it, he reminds me of a lot of the characters from
oh yeah,
kind of.
yeah. The
like,
mask is more like brilliant.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that's
you could see it in the rest of it.
Totally could.
Yeah, because like his body is like that's the way that's kind of like definitely set up to be, to where it's like has like patches of skin that's missed, like self and mutilation that's taken place. He's got like, how would you describe his mask? Like it's almost kind of like wooden, but it's not like quite as tall as this dude.
I thought it was just like around like his forehead and eyes and upper lip. Almost like it was bolted on or something.
See, I took it as he is the Advent calendar.
That's what I took it as.
He had numbers carved into his skin, and he had like I think it was an upside down cross in one space. So he was kind of carved with the imagery of certain aspects of the calendar as well.
My camera's blurry. I'm so sorry. I'm like detracting. Whatever. Patrons, you're going to deal with the blurry camera.
Yeah. So
they deal with the blurry background in me all the time, and an occasional puppy nose.
And if you would like to see videos of this podcast and would like to support our mental health efforts, it's patreon.com/victims and villains.
Perfect.
Mark, I will, I mean, you brought it up, so thank you. Mark, I will also kind of nerd out a little bit, because like the way that you're like describing this character is like it kind of has a Victor Zsasz feel to it, the way that he like kind of mutilates his skin a little bit, carving like the numbers into him. It's like a twisted version of like Calendar Man too.
So Zaz's scars were like little tick marks for each person he murdered.
Yep.
And I know of Calendar Man. I'm not overly familiar with him. I was thinking more along the lines of a less scarified Sam Neill from the end of Event Horizon.
Ooh, yep.
With pants?
With pants? What, a skirt?
Maybe.
Skirt?
Yeah.
A kilt? We could call it a kilt.
A kilt.
With a horror kilt. But yeah, I just thought his design was super cool, and the like monster lover in me was like, give me more.
I really love the way that this movie builds and like makes you want it, because like you get these like really eerie like pink and purple like shadowed shots of him in the early portion of the film where Eva first gets the calendar, and then you see like glimpses of him throughout the course of it. But it's when William like dies and like dumps the calendar, which is another rule not to dump the calendar or I kill you. And he comes back, and you just kind of get to see him in like the full flesh. It's like 45-50 minutes into the movie, but it takes its time with like making you earn the monster, and I really appreciated that.
For sure. That was it. That was all I had.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
For sure. How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
I do like the pacing of this movie.
Go ahead.
No, go.
You're the guest.
Okay. I was just gonna say that like I was pleasantly surprised by the pacing of this movie. I was going into it, I think the only expectation was it's either going to be really long or it's going to be really short, and it was good.
So they did set it up to do another one.
I would love that.
They could very easily do one with the painter to show you what he went through.
Mm-hmm.
I would absolutely love that. That scene kind of, again, I forgot completely about it, but yeah, I would love to see that scene, because I feel like Don't Breathe is another one, but I mean, Stephen Lang's not blind, so I'd love to have the chance to see an actual blind actor take on a role like this. I think that would be such a fascinating movie to see.
That would be really cool, because we don't know where he is in the line of this advent calendar. He's just the first person, as far as we know, that left something for the other person. Like, I don't necessarily think that maybe the people before him did that. So it's interesting that he would leave like a treat.
It's set up in a manner that they could treat it almost like a wishmaster, where each movie was a different possessor of a crystal in that movie, or a gem that he was locked in, or whatever.
Yeah. It's been forever since I've seen that.
It could be something like that, where it's just various people that have gotten a hold of the calendar.
Yeah. I would 100% watch that.
One of the things that I think they do really well in this movie is the scene where William does die, but like the symmetry between how they balance Eva kind of getting sucked in, and it's also kind of this like really like romanticized sequence where it's like she understands that she's getting ready to sacrifice him, but like also at the same time, like it's this like really sweet moment where the two of them are just kind of under the water together. And she's not really understanding he's dead in this moment, but like I love that sequence. I love the way that it's shot, and it's a really tender moment after such a brutal death.
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet and like almost like ethereal in the way that it's shot. I was a little confused as to why she ended up where he died. And
I was too. I just didn't want to say anything.
I'll say it. Because my mind is like, oh, is she the killer? Like, does Ish not mean?
which would play into the name of the creature.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it is her committing these murders. Now knowing the I underline thing, what it translates to. I think in some regards, like that's kind of why you get to see that sequence play out. The way that it does is because like she, I don't want to say blacks out, but I think that she kind of gives us a good performance to where like she's slowly starting to understand what sacrifices are going to be asked of her, and William unfortunately just happens to be the first one.
Yeah, poor William. He kind of get the short end of the stick there.
Well, they had
a
couple scenes where she'd wake up and had lost a couple days.
Yeah. Yeah, he got the short end of the stick because he basically their meeting scene is great because she's like talking to Sophie, and Sophie's like, yeah, you should go over and introduce yourself. She's like, yeah, what am I gonna say? Hello, are you a nurse? Would you like to wash my private parts? And literally that's the first thing he says to her. He's like, I'm a registered nurse. I could wash your private parts.
Well, then he
responded with, I don't know why I said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he gets the short end of the stick because he basically ends up getting the like the love potion handed to him, and so he falls for her, and then like actually like ends up befriending her, and then ultimately gets like sacrificed in the end because he was trying to help her.
Yeah, it really does blow. Like, because if she didn't put that in his drink, then like he would have been fine. Would have been fine.
Yep.
Potentially.
She was essentially the cause of everybody's death.
Well,
of course.
Eesh.
Yeah, well, yeah, Ish, but also like that the statement that they say so much, it's essentially kill or be killed. It's either you're going to make a sacrifice or you're going to be sacrificed.
Yeah, and this shows a really good way of, or a really good portrait of how much someone will do or go through to get the thing that they like absolutely wish for.
Yeah. Because she was willing to kill to get her legs back.
Well, I mean, in her line of field, like she was a dancer. Like that's kind of like the means of how she made money. That would be like, Nuggs being essentially like losing just every video game that she ever owned, or like all of her like streaming equipment.
Everyone sad puppy.
But all of that to say that like at the end of the day, like, yeah, I think I understand her desperation because like I wouldn't necessarily do the same things that she did, but I understand her motivation as a character, because if it meant that I could provide a life for my wife and also be really still be really happy, and have a healthy mental health mindset, I would go for it. Because at the end of the day, like she's miserable.
Yeah.
And her mental health is terrible, not just from the company she keeps, but like William seems to be like the first real person, and Antoine, I don't know how you say his name.
I think it's
but Anton. He's the guy from the pool. who like, befriends her at the beginning of the movie, or like at least attempts to but again, she has that all of those walls up, and
Mhm.
she's just not in a good, space mentally. And I think that, the desperation for her not just to get her legs back, but I think also it's for her to be in a better space with her own mental health.
Yeah, which actually it just dawned on me as you were talking. William is a good example of not necessarily being like toxic or whatever for her. It's just because of she wanted to be loved by someone so much that they just like kind of did whatever for her without really thinking about it. But this Anton guy was like more of a not necessarily healthier option, but it's like her like putting what she thought she wanted like away a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I've seen people that kind of tend to distance from people when they have a handicap because it's easier than trying to figure out who's just being nice and who's really your friend.
Yeah.
I think to some degree, like you really have to kind of push through that, and befriend someone, because like movies like the Advent Calendar have kind of put it on my radar to uh not only be nicer to people, or but I think be more intentional, I think is the word, because like you said, like you never know who is looking at you because of your handicapped, who's wanting to befriend you because of your handicapped, but like actually showing that there are still genuine people that exist in the world.
Yeah, this is a great movie to like further the conversation and get the conversation started and out there in an unconventional way. Because
Yeah.
within this conversation, essentially, we all have been like, yeah, I'm going to be like way more aware. Like you were saying, how do we have more like handicap accessible like items and shops and stuff? And so I think this movie is really cool because not only does it give you scares and like good to good-ish like cinematography, but it also brings that conversation, I think, to light in a more generalized for more of the general audience
Yeah.
to talk about and feel okay talking about it, I guess. That was my 2 cents.
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, as much as you kind of need to be aware of these kind of things with some people, you don't want to go too overboard because then they almost feel belittled.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I kind of feel it's that same way with like people in recovery from addiction too, is people
Mm-hmm.
almost want to treat them like they're diseased or sick, and oh, are you okay? And it can do more harm than good a lot of times.
Absolutely. Like don't treat everyone with baby gloves. Like they are in this case she is an adult. Like
Yeah.
you expect adults to do certain things, or
Yeah,
act
like
act
it's
certain ways, I guess.
yeah, it's about, I think, well, quality is what something like this boils down to, because like yeah, some person, might be handicapped in X, Y, or Z ways. And then Mark, you bring up the addiction community. Like I think it's another great example where it's like I am gonna treat you for who you are today,
Mm-hmm.
and treat you the same way that I would treat someone that is sober, or treat you the same way that we would treat, someone that has never been paralyzed,
Mm-hmm.
um, or has never gone through a traumatic event, or but whatever. And because I think at the end of the day, like, we're all people and we're all looking to be seen and heard. And I think that's kind of the uphill battle that Eva finds herself going through for so long, is that she never feels seen, or she never feels validated, and to certain extents. because she's constantly, like Mark said, she's constantly belittled, she's constantly looked down upon, there's constantly like misogynistic, you know, misogyny that she's facing against, or you know, like hoes trying to steal her man. There's a number of different things that she goes through, and it's because of this state that she's in. And it kind of almost feels like with Anton, and even with each, that like this is the first time since this accident that she actually feels seen and heard and validated.
Well, and probably powerful too. A lot of her power is taken from her, so she's probably like, yeah, man.
That too.
Yeah, she lost a lot of her abilities, and now she's starting to be able to kind of have her way, display her will almost in the process of trying to get her legs back. So yeah, it's some of it's a power play too.
Yeah. And yeah, the last thing I want to say about this is that, like, it seems like the relationship that like she had with her father was like probably the only genuine relationship she had. Because like to me, like their story felt like the heartbeat of this movie, to where like, yes, it's Eva's story, but like it's this like a subplot of the movie that makes like his death like almost brought me to tears, because
Yeah.
it's so hard to watch her kind of go through that. And I think that, like, to an extent, like here she had this person that was probably really supportive of her, being in a field that I don't imagine it pays super well. All right, so I'm updating this in post. I've already confirmed and talked to my dance contact, and she did say that it is more than possible to make a comfortable living off of dancing. And there are so many different subcategories that you can go into, not just dancing, but teaching choreographers, etc. So Eva essentially in this movie had a comfortable living, and then again, this emphasizes that everything was indeed stripped away from her. We now bring you back to your regularly scheduled podcast. At the end of the day, like, she also had that stripped of her with this disease that he has, and these like little nuggets of moments are something that I think she really cherishes. And I think it's something that this movie does really well, because there's almost kind of like this endorphin high that is released when she's having these moments with her father.
I just thought of something. Was that her mom in the car with her? Because he says, I miss your mother. So they obviously got remarried. Obviously. I'm wondering if that was her mom, or is she too young? Now I have to watch it.
I don't know. I've heard and like seen girls that their moms look like they could just be kind of older sisters.
Because if that's her mom, it brings another like heartbeat to the movie of the connection, but especially between her and her dad, is like, not only did they potentially, let's just say for argument's sake, that was her mom. So they lost their wife and mother, and then his daughter, the only surviving family member, is paralyzed. And then so they're dealing with that, and then he gets Alzheimer's on top of it. It's layered.
But wouldn't mom know better than to be like texting and taking selfies while driving down the street?
You would think
I
so?
think I don't know, man. I mean, we live in a world of where cougars and MILFs are very real things. So
it's true.
I kind of married a puma.
There you go.
She's not quite old. She's not old enough to be a cougar, but she's older than me. So,
well, then she'd a MILF. You married a MILF.
I mean, we do have kids, so
Exactly. That's all you
I,
need to be a MILF. MILF kids
I,
and good looking.
I, I do think the driver was a little too young,
You're probably
to
right.
be
I
her
think I'm
mother.
grabbing at stuff to make it
Josh is
better.
Well,
I think Josh is more disturbed by the slight detour in conversation than anything else.
look, I don't want to talk about Kate being a MILF, a Puma, whatever. I respect you a little bit too much to enter into that conversation.
And it's funny, whenever friends come over and stuff, she starts acting like the mom of the group. Do you need a
Aw.
Oh,
drink? Do you want a snack?
100% can attest. I stayed with Mark back in like July, and when I
She
went
turned
down
into a
there,
mom.
she absolutely did. Like I went to the bathroom and like I came back out. She's got like pillows and like blankets, and she's like, I'm gonna go get you the like something to like lay under tops of the sofa so you don't have to just lay on the sofa. And I was like, it's not really that big a deal, dude. Like she made breakfast in the morning. Like,
That's so nice.
I mean, yeah, she's cool. I like your wife.
That's a MILF in my eyes. So
Yeah, she totally turns into the mom of the group every time we go out with friends or hang out with people. She turns into the mom of the group. So, I mean, we went out with some friends. I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, and the waitress where we were at was having a very rough night.
mm,
And she just decided that we were her table that she was adopting for the night and hanging out with
oh,
us because she'd come over and vent about customers and management and all kinds of stuff all night long.
that's
So
awesome.
my wife took it upon herself. She's go get the manager. I'm going to talk to the manager and starts talking up the waitress
That's
to the
awesome.
manager to kind of
Nice.
give her a better night. So, because she's just that kind of person. And then there's me, I'm just kind of an asshole to everybody.
Are you
So
a Grumposaurus?
yes,
I, I wouldn't go that far.
I have said plenty of times I'm looking forward to telling kids to get off my lawn.
I'm gonna hire kids just to go stand in your lawn. All right, I think that's gonna do it for us on this episode. Happy holidays to all, and to all a good night. The Advent calendar is now streaming on Shudder, and when you guys get done, you guys can follow Nugs on Twitch and all of her platforms. Give us those socials, please.
So Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Easier way to find it is on my link tree. So linktr.ee/NTFG, which stands for nuggs-the-final-girl.
And Mark, I know it's a running joke at this point. Where can people find you?
Probably hiding from Christmas carols.
So here's a quick little thing. In my opinion, Christmas stuff shouldn't happen until after December 15th, and then it can stay until January 2nd, and then it's gone.
I mean, I'll give them till December 1st until the end of the month.
That's a little more fair than mine.
I mean, but when I go to the store in
Ugh.
July and there's trees out and ornaments, it's like, I hate you people. So I get like 30 days of Halloween and you get 6 months of Christmas. It's not fair.
Halloween is far superior, but
yes.
Oh, absolutely. You're on the right podcast to make that statement.
Spooky season is the far superior holiday.
that's why I made it my life.
Anyways, I paint miniatures and I'm still at the same Instagram I always am, Titanium Juggernaut Painting. And I just haven't updated it in like a couple months. Because I
That's
haven't.
okay.
But you should go follow them anyways.
Yeah.
Just go do it.
There is stuff coming. I've said that for like the past 4 or 5 podcasts, but I haven't figured out how to get better pictures of my work and make it look pretty.
And it's the holidays. You got
Yeah.
that. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
just
you
go
can just
with
use that as an
It's the
excuse.
holidays.
You guys can follow me. I'm on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia, also on TikTok at Gent Ghostface, GENT. I've no longer make Hellraiser content anymore. I'm working on my first book talk right now, so there's that.
Yeah.
I've seen you make Hellraiser posts recently.
Look, because I share it on Facebook does not mean that it is
It's still a
that I'm
Hellraiser
making.
post.
Look, I'll show you this hat when we get off here. Anyways, you guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and wherever you guys get your podcast from. And when you're there, also subscribe to our brand new feed, Abyss Gazing, wherever you guys get your podcast from. And until next time, remember that the longer you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.